Hi guys, in this video I'll show you how I created this pencil generator. So this is a whole node graph. This part is for creating the pencil itself. This part is for creating vertex colors. This part is RBD simulation, pretty much two nodes, and the collision node. And this one is for normals, cleaning up geometry, and this one creating LODs, and that's pretty much it. So the shape starts with a circle, then I'm reversing it, then I'm adding a length using a poly extrude. Then I'm adding another poly extrude and referencing the front group from the length poly extrude, and I'm pasting the relative reference into the second poly extrude. And this creates a wooden tip, or I'm not sure how it's properly called. Then I'm creating a group, and also under this wooden tip I'm also exporting front group, and also I have renamed it from the default one extrude front to extrude front group, extrude front wood, and I'm referencing this front group inside of this poly extrude, which I have called tip. As you can see, here is an orange line telling that there is a reference from this node. And then I'm grouping a tip by using front group. Oops, that's this one. Where it is? By using a front group and also a side group. Basically, a side group is this part. Let me show you quickly. Basically, a side part of the extrusion, which is this part, without the very top, without the front group from the tip poly extrude. So you have this. Then I'm subdividing it. Then I'm doing a clip to clip this shape. Then I'm filling it using a polyfill. Then I'm reducing it using a preserve quads option. You can do it like so. And I will come back to this part a little bit later. And after wooden tip, I also subdividing it with a depth of 3 and a crease weight of 2.5. And the same thing I have done with a wooden tip. And to create a shape cutter, I have used a blast node, and I have blasted away basically this front group from the length poly extrude, and this will act as a cutter in the Boolean operation later. And here I am scaling it up a little bit. I have set a pivot to the center of this circle with these expressions, and you can read about those expressions in the Houdini documentation. And then I'm using a sample node to add some points, basically to add resolution, which needed when using this mountain node. Then I'm using a mountain sop, and this mountain sop will be basically a cutter for the shaving effect. And then I'm using a ray sop with the method of minimum distance, and I'm raying this cutter to this shape in order to cut geometry here, as you can see. And I'm also scaling it down a little bit, because by default it was inside the shape. You can actually do it without ray, but I have used ray anyways. And then I'm using a boolean, and the operation set is to intersect, and I'm treating a geometry as a surface. And this is what the result will get, because by default, it will be a solid, and this is the result we will get. And it's not what I was looking for, because when using subdivide downstream, this is the result we will get. And I actually want to have holes in this area, and default method is not what I was looking for, so I changed it to surface, and this is the result we will get. And here I have also used a labs node to delete small parts, but it's actually not really needed, so I will delete it. And then I have used a split primitive by normal to separate this bottom circle. And that's the only thing I have changed, is I changed the direction to -y. So the reason I need this bottom circle is because I want to place another circles that you might see on each pencil. And then I'm using a null to output this circle. Then I'm subdividing the shape, with a depth of 1, increase weight of 3. Then I'm using a pick to push geometry in the normal direction. And the reason I have used it is because I want this geometry to project back to this geometry. And without using pick, I'll actually show you. So without using pick, this is the result we'll get. So basically, I wanted to push geometry outwards in the normal direction, and then I want to ray it back with this ray swap onto the original surface. So hopefully it makes sense. Yeah, and I have also created a group, and to create this bottom circle with the ink color, I have used a circle. And I have changed the division size to 24, and then I use the channel reference to scale, to procedurally scale the circle shape based on the radius of the whole pencil. So what I mean by that, if I increase the radius of the pencil, the bottom circle size will also be increased. So pay attention to it. It's basically scaling proportionally. And the way I have done it is by copy-pasting relative reference from this original circle, which is from which I have created this length of the pencil, and then I copy parameter and pasted relative reference and divided by 2. And then I have used the match size, and under the geometry to match geometry to move, I have used this base geometry, which is basically a shading part. And I have used minimum justify y to mean, and also with this offset. And z and x I set to none because I don't need to move the circle in any of those axes. And then I have also grouped it. And the reason I'm grouping it because I will be using these groups in the coloring phase as well as when adding normals. And after that, this is also when I have added object merge and referenced it and added a reference to this null by drag and dropping it into this object merge, like so. And then I grouped it. And the reason I grouped it is because I wanted to separate this wooden part with this wood part, or whatever it's called. And yeah, this is the result. So this is a shaped geometry and the other parts of the pencil. And the reason I have clipped this geometry is because I didn't want to have unnecessary geometry here. This is a solution I came up with. And to create colors, I have used the attribute color adjust, and I have used this node to create vertex colors. And I have specified groups for the base, for the wood parts, as well as the tip, as well as the bottom circle. And you can change the operation type to set initial, and I have exposed constant color to the HDA level. And that's pretty much it for the coloring. And then I have poly reduced the entire shape, and I used the preserve quads options, and I kept 15%. And this is the result. And then I've used the shape. As you can see, the difference in the point count and primitive count. And this is needed for the RBD. This is basically preparation for the RBD. And then I have used a group node, and I have named it, and I have used it to group those bottom points with the bounding box option enabled, as well as the normals. And under the bounding box regions, I have used the bounding box expression, which is basically to actually show you what the default will be. So if I change it to points and initialize bounding box, and I wanted to move this entire bounding box into this small area And the way to do it is by using the bounding box expression. So basically, in the x-axis, I'm using a bounding box expression, and 0 means current input, which is this input. And then I'm after the comma, I specified a dx size, basically to capture the entire x. You can call it width of the object. And then I have added a 1, just 0.1, to make sure that I have captured the entire object. And then I have used for the y-axis a dymin, which is basically move the bounding box to the minimum, which is here. Let me show you quickly. So pay attention to the bounding box. And then I use a ymin. As you can see, something has been changed. And then I will add a 0.1. And it's in the middle here. Oh, it's actually because of the center. We need to make it a default. So the reason it was in the middle here is because of this value which was before created when I clicked initialize to input bounds. But if I delete it, this is what the result we will get. So basically, with this bounding box expression, which is set to dymin plus 0.1, I'm moving this bounding box into the minimum of this pencil, and then I'm adding a 0.1, which increases the bounding box y size to 0.1, and this is the result we get. And so the reason I used this expression is to fuse this circle with the pencil shape. I'm scaling it down, the whole pencil, for the RBD purpose. And then inside of the simulation, I'm using the object merge, and I have exposed this value to the HDL level, so I can, inside of Unreal Engine, I can drag and drop whatever collision object or objects I want to collide with, and everything here is pretty much by default. So if I play this simulation, this is the result we will get. And so nothing crazy going on here. So nothing special going on here. And after the RVD balance solver, I'm using a time shift to output a certain number, certain frame number, and I have exposed this parameter to the HDA level, and this is what this output frame number does. And then I'm using switch to enable disable simulation. Then I'm using normals. Then I'm adding a clean node. I have unchecked removed degenerate primitives, and I'm removing all of the groups. And I'm removing every attribute except color, normal, UV, if I will be adding it in the future, and Unreal Material. Then I have added an option to create collision geometry for the Unreal Engine, and if you want to enable it, this is what you need to type. Basically, this group name, so Unreal Engine and Houdini Engine will recognize it as a collision geometry. And to enable nanite, you can use attribute create, and then you type Unreal Nanite enabled, and the class should be, the type should be integer, but for me float also worked, and the default value I have set to none, and it was working after the geometry baked through Houdini Engine inside Unreal Engine. I have also added LOD functionality, and to create LOD, all you have to do is to name LODs like so. So the highest LOD will be LOD 0 and the lowest will be LOD 3. And you have to add poly reducers to each one of them. And for the LOD screen size, you can create it with the attribute create, and basically the same thing as with LODs to enable LOD screen size for the LOD 0, you need to type something like that, and the class should be the detail. And the value will be 1 for the highest LOD, and for the lowest LOD, the value will be close to 0. And yeah, and then I'm merging everything together, and the result will be not so good, but when the mesh will be baked inside of Unreal Engine, it will have LODs. And then I'm also creating a switch to enable disable LODs, and that's pretty much how I have created this pencil generator. And yeah, this is how you can create a pencil generator. This was the first video in 3-part series. In the next video, I will show you how to create a case for the pencils, and as well as how to add RBD simulation to the case itself, so pencils can collide with the case. And yeah, see you soon. Take care. Have a lot of joy.